All right, 12 months later, same room, different crowd, and I would say prediction markets have exploded in the public consciousness since we had this exact similar panel last year, and it feels like, we're predicting the future because a lot more people here now on stage, a lot more people talking about prediction markets. This has become even a national priority in the US, you could say. Maybe let's just have you guys please do a quick intro. Keep it to like 30 seconds.
Hey guys, I'm Adrian. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Spartan Group, and I lead Spartan Labs. We are a VC and advisory headquartered in Singapore and Hong Kong. At Spartan Labs, we're a venture studio and product lab. We are currently incubating a project that's part of the OLAS Accelerator program, combining AI and prediction markets to better enhance decisions around grant and funding.
Hey, I'm Victor, and I do ops at Olas.
Is that the mic that wasn't working for me? Is it working for you? Oh, that's the one. You got it. Okay. Pretty impressive.
Hey everybody, my name is Sydney Lai. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Gaia. At Gaia, what we do is we provide AI context that is potable. So as an example, you could use your AI completely offline and fully own it.
Hi, my name is Michael Dressler. I'm the head of success at Zero Gravity Labs, also known as Zero G. We are an all-in-one AI blockchain meant for high throughput and low latency use cases. We are comprised of a decentralized AI operating system that separates consensus from execution with modular services built on top, such as decentralized storage, data availability, and computation.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben, co-founder and CEO of Gensyn. We build decentralized and open source machine learning software. I guess the kind of reason that I'm here talking about prediction markets is that we have a pretty strong belief that prediction markets are a very interesting way of crowdsourcing information for training of machine learning models, and maybe we'll get into that on this panel.
Hey everybody, I'm Don. I'm the co-founder of Nevermind. Jordi, it's deja vu. I still know nothing about prediction markets, just like last year. At Nevermind, we've built payment infrastructure for agent-to-agent payments. We power OLAS's payments and a bunch of Web2 agent builder payments.
Awesome. I'm Jordi, the founder of Selene. We love investing in this kind of stuff. So a lot of our portcos here, and just a space I'm very excited and passionate about in general. So always good to have these panels. Each time, we're progressing towards the future. Obviously, there's hype. I think some of the hype is materializing. Ben, let's start with you. I mean, you kind of mentioned that this crowdsourcing thing is possible. There's two sources of intelligence. One is the wisdom of the crowds. Basically, you put this question out there and people are financially motivated to push it towards, the probabilistically right answer. And then you have AI, which just trains on a bunch of data, and we can't exactly explain, why it predicts something. But theoretically, as we kind of get stronger and stronger machines, apart from the wisdom of the crowds, forget the people, the AIs are also going to be, having pretty good predictions, just combining things on vectors we can't even, comprehend. Are those two things going to merge, or are they separate paths? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, in general, we think about decision making with AI models in a very similar way we think about decision making with humans, right? Like at the end of the day, any sense of truth that you get within human society rolls down to consensus of some kind. Do we agree that something is true? And if we do, then we kind of lock it in and we decide that it's true. You can look at the entire academic peer review process of progressing science as working in this way. We think that it's empirical and based on evidence, but actually the way that we decide something is empirical and based on evidence is via peer review and then consensus. So at the end of the day, it is just a big wisdom of the crowds situation. One of the big problems with that is how do you actually decide skin in the game? How do you figure out whether the strength of somebody's conviction behind a certain decision? And prediction markets give us that ability to put skin in the game. So somebody can lock financial assets behind a decision, and in doing so, they can signal how much they care about that decision. Our intuition is that you can do exactly the same thing with machine machine learning models. And so with crypto rails, with the ability to have all these payments and lock up tokens and interact programmatically with finance, actually you can have models do that exact same process. And in doing that, you're crowdsourcing truth from machines in a way that has skin in the game the same way as it would with humans. And we actually have a product that's live on our testnet called Judge, which demonstrates this. It's prediction markets over progressive reveal games with machine learning models making all of the decisions. They're basically betting in these markets, and then they see their own performance out of the end of that market. And over all of that, you get Vitalik's info finance concept of getting wisdom of the crowds.
Sydney, how about you? Have you guys been kind of using prediction markets as one of the key use cases that you want to add value towards?
Yeah, actually, something I wanted to dovetail was Ben's point. You talked about the collective being able to surface what kind of information is accurate, what kind of information can be learned. That's something that you've mentioned. And something I actually want to highlight is when you currently look at how information is currently being validated. Let's take a look at YouTube. If you look at a YouTube channel, YouTube video, the algorithm assumes, oh, this must be a great video. There's a bunch of thumbs up, there's a lot of comments, but there's not a way to disseminate the value add of the comments. It could just be a volume play. There's no understanding of what is the social graph of the like button for YouTube in that particular case. So what we're seeing in this current transition is this type of indexed like, comment, subscribe as a very binary vote for approval or that there's consensus. And what we're seeing now in this transition is that these really binary like, subscribe, comment is no longer true consensus, or it might not have the same value add.
Victor, what kind of stack do you see appearing when it comes to, ground up all the way down? Obviously, we have training, we have, a front end that people are interacting with, we have, oracles and different layers. Like, which part do you think is most challenging or the most interesting for you?
I guess if there was like one challenge, it would be how do you make sure that the participant that is not a flawed market. So I guess that would be like questions around security. How you make sure that you're not being played. You think that it's a fair market, but actually it might be very much there is like a secret hand manipulating the market. So I think that would be where. I mean,
we talked about this last year. Prediction markets are so weird because you hear insider trading and it's like a illegal thing. It's such a bad thing. You go to jail. SEC puts you in jail. But then prediction markets, the whole point is that the insiders kind of reveal things that the value of that revealing is valuable to society because we're all learning that, okay, this might happen, and someone's putting a lot of money because they're financially motivated. But so it's sort of a strange thing because you kind of want the insiders in a way, which is it's just bizarre. Let's ask a little bit of a different question. How do you think about getting exposure? Because this thing is blowing up. In crypto, we like to buy tokens, but at least right now, there's no call sheet token, there's no poly market token. Like from, wanting to get kind of access to, if you believe this is going to keep going, how do you think about that?
Well, prediction markets, I think, are doing massive volume in the last couple months. And there is a huge spike in prediction market projects and their corresponding tokens leading to indexes on Kaito and other token tracking platforms. But I think to us, and just to kind of double tap on what Ben was speaking about, the bigger opportunity is not necessarily the prediction market as the market or the token for that project, but the bigger market that prediction markets as decision markets enable. As information aggregation engines, if you have all kinds of extremes, from insiders to retail, and then you combine AI and humans together to inform decisions, I think that market is going to be very interesting, or that concept is going to be very interesting, and that is quite nascent at the moment.
Yeah. Michael, let me shift over to you. what role do you think social media platforms are going to play with prediction markets? I mean, obviously we have Twitter polls and different integrations that people are trying to do to these things. Do you think social media is going to kind of bring in the masses to these sort of markets?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I definitely think that social media is going to provide a very good, entry point, removing that barrier from people to participate. But as we've seen across the space, you don't know if that individual account that you're working with actually is a person behind it, or if it is just somebody's program bot. So what really comes into play here is having that necessary security, having that real on-chain verifiability and attestation. And that's what Zero G really focuses on. We provide those infra rails that make AI a public good. So we think to ourselves, if somebody's building an LLM, building a model that is using some centralized provider, OpenAI, Gemini, you really don't know what's happening with that data. You don't know who's behind the curtain actually pulling the strings. So when we have the ability to bring these models on chain in a verifiably secure manner, it's going to allow us and allow social media to really have the ability to drive adoption as we see moving forward. And one of the things that Zero G's created as of recent is our INFT, which is an ERC 7857. And when people are building these agentic frameworks, they actually have the ability to encrypt the metadata that's associated with all of the LLMs and the work that they've put into it, giving them proprietary ownership of that actual agent. And that opens up a completely different market when it comes to trading, when it comes to actually selling that agent as a whole piece. So I feel like as this development continues on, there's going to be even more transparency with these prediction markets, because you could create an agent that is predicting events and you could have that on-chain verification.
Yeah, absolutely. Don, yeah, it's deja vu. What have you learned, since we last spoke about some of the, either challenges that are unexpected or some of the, things that are moving really, really well?
With prediction markets, I haven't learned anything.
Everything that you're looking at.
Yeah. So, okay. There's a bunch on the application side, but we're talking a lot about the theoretical, right? So, what happens in a state where agents have some level of autonomy and agency? We reach, at least from the ability to interact with a prediction market, some form of intelligence, not general but specialized. What happens if a prediction market's dictated by wisdom of the crowd? What happens when the majority of that crowd is just producing slop? And the techniques now are basically like, Ben needs to solve that problem for us. But what are the other social tests that a prediction market can use? I think these are also broadly applicable, but across user interfaces and markets. Our focus is on the payment side of things. There's already questions around KYA and how that's going to happen from a retail commercial point of view. The way we look at things is keep the scope very thin or small. Look at applications on, say, like a business to business context, where those counterparties are known and you don't have to do as much, inference and extrapolation as to the actual identity of those counterparties. Maybe that's the answer for prediction markets. You got to KYC or KYB everybody that's involved. Pretty shitty if that's the case, but I don't know, opening it up to the rest of the panel, how the hell do you test for slop?
Anybody want to jump in?
So recently what we ended up doing was we have a peer-reviewed and published research paper on how we built the Gaia AVS. How do we figure out a verification for the slop that you're talking about? One of the things that we decided to do was actually do statistical modeling. There's a lot of conversations in the space, should it be TE, which we believe is pretty binary. It doesn't account for nuances. Humans are very nuanced. There's a lot of decisions in the market that's extremely nuanced. So how do you have agents or algorithms be able to handle that type of nuance? So that's one of the ways that we really wanted to introduce to the engineering ecosystem, is actually taking a look at statistical modeling to be able to statistically assume the probability of, is it good, is it not good, that type of slop. I'd love to see more.
Is that credit risk scoring applied to agents, or is it a new
You can
technique?
call it that, yeah, for sure. You can call it that, and of course, it can also be manipulated, right? Something I'd love to highlight actually is prediction markets. You ask, is it substance or hype? I want to remind ourselves that you guys remember Wall Street Bets, GameStop, the 2022 era, and if we like to assume as an analogy that is like a precursor to the proliferation of prediction markets, these financial firms, these risk creditors, they're saying on an institutional level, GameStop, it's not worth X, Y, and Z. And the people, the slop, the social media said, hey, we can create enough volume to actually sway that kind of vote, right? So if you have something that is deterministic, an AI that's run on TE, maybe it wouldn't be able to account for that. It's already settled. And that's one reason why we decided to go with statistical modeling. And it's kind of 2 bullet points in one. I don't think it's, hype, but just don't forget the Wall Street era.
I think the problem with the Wall Street Bets analogy, though, is that humans are the banks, we're the paper handers, and agents are probably the diamond handers.
Yeah. Unless if it's built by paper hander vote.
But isn't that the way, that's the system now? The paper handers did, anyway.
I mean, Ben, do you think that the predictions can sometimes manifest into reality? I mean, back in the ancient Greek days, they would go to the oracle and ask them stuff, and then they would believe it, that there's going to be a war. Oh, there's going to be a war, let's go to war. Like, people start really looking for direction on where to go, and you see like how much hype happens after a presidential election. Like, Polymarket got it right, and then they just think that we should use this as a source of what's going to happen. Are you scared at all of self-fulfilling prophecies through these things and manipulating like what people expect?
I think that in many ways that's the goal, right? Like, you want it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy as long as you have enough proof that the consensus is strong enough. I think there's maybe the 2 issues that we've talked about here with machine learning prediction markets. There's the truth issue, which is, do you know for certain that the participant in the market is actually truthfully participating? You can do a lot of careful market design to make sure that stuff like that can't really affect the market, but ultimately you need some degree of deterministic execution, as was mentioned. So you need some way of having fraud proofs or re-execution or something like that to know that a model executed exactly as it said it did. Once you've solved that problem, you'd have a market participant like you would with a human participant. The other issue we've talked about is that slop idea, this idea that you get derivative kind of takes from models that in kind of consensus may come to a decision which is actually a terrible decision, right? Well, I think prediction markets are the solution to that because they have essentially the Sybil resistance of locking value behind stakes that allows you to distinguish between real skin in the game versus just that kind of slop that's going through. So you collect up people's belief, like human belief and model belief in certain takes, and then you quantify that with the stake that is locked into that market. And I think this happens at the individual market level. Like you mentioned, the presidential election had enormous amounts of volume locked into it. If you take the presidential election and you take some sports game that's happening tomorrow, you look at the delta between volume in those markets and you basically get the delta in kind of human interest in those problems. That's fascinating as a concept. You can apply that on models and on humans, and in doing that you rank basically every single problem or decision that exists in the world by the level of interest in that problem. That's one level. The next level down is the solutions to those problems. And so if you allow people to stake behind solutions to problems, you have the same ranking that exists, and it exists in human belief as well as it exists in the test of the solution itself. And so in doing that, you can cut through that slot by applying this like human belief metric coming from prediction markets themselves. So we think ultimately prediction markets are a counter to most of those problems that would otherwise exist if we just let machine learning like proliferate across the world. It's almost like a Sybil resistance mechanism.
Let's talk a little bit about something as a layman. I'd love to hear if any of you guys are thinking or working on this category, but the Oracle category seems like still a mess. I mean, people complain about Polymarket's Oracle and different things. I just see it on the outside. It's like, oh, Lord Miles gonna be in the desert fasting for 40 days, and then people are saying like, oh, but he did he left and he moved the camera. How do we know what's going on? The Oracle issue, because you predict something, and then we need to verify what actually happened. And insofar as like, am I wearing a suit or is this not a suit? Like if somebody put a prediction market on, is Jordi wearing a suit today? You might have different answers. Has there been any progress in that, or like, are we seeing anything soon that might help on the Oracle side? Anyone looking at this?
I can jump in on that quickly. I'm very, very strong believer in using models as a solution to this. Essentially, the vast majority of problems come from taking a market commitment, so the creation of the market, which is all the rules we agree that we'll kind of execute when the market settles. So which sources of data are we going to use to decide whether this outcome happened, like how are we going to process them, etc. And then you have like the settlement mechanism, which usually right now is rolling up to some human consensus that's stake weighted. The problem with that is if the stake weighting is lower than the outcome of the market, then you have a really obvious attack vector. You just attack the stake weighting, you blast enough value into that to win the entire market. If you win more in the market, the whole thing is completely vulnerable. Our belief is that you replace that whole consensus mechanism with a commitment to a deterministic machine learning oracle. So everyone agrees that Llama 4 is going to be the model that assesses these sets of inputs for the settlement of this market. That cannot be changed. If you pick a checkpoint of Llama 4 and you say this exact hash of model weights, that is a deterministic intelligence that can execute at a predetermined point in time in the future on a set of predetermined inputs, and nobody can argue with its execution because they've all committed by entering the market to that arbitration of that model. The problem is you have to verify the model, which is something we've worked for a very long time on.
I mean, if everybody in this room asked ChatGPT, a certain question, they might get different answers, right? Even if they're using the same model, and just slight things might make it change. So is relying on the model itself to give you the answer, is that robust?
It is if you make the entire execution deterministic, which ChatGPT obviously doesn't. It introduces randomness for various reasons. You can fix all of those sources of randomness, though. It's very difficult. You have to build new software to do it. We've done that, and we have deterministic execution of models, but it does require entirely new software stacks, and others are building similar things as well. But yeah, if you did it through ChatGPT, it wouldn't work. But if you pick an exact checkpoint of model parameters and execute it fully deterministically, it is identical.
Victor, any thoughts on this?
None.
Okay, all right. Well put.
I feel like Chainlink has the ability to, help with this issue, as they actually have created, most of their oracles built around a decentralized oracle network, or a DON, that does take into account consensus of a set group of node operators. But they actually have 3 levels of aggregation specifically for their price feeds, for instance, that are done not only at the data provider level, the node operator, and then the entire network. So there are fail-safes that are put in place to help try to prevent any malicious attack. And of course, as we step further into the future, these can be enhanced. But another way of doing it is leveraging multiple Oracle decentralized Oracle networks to correct themselves. So they use this basis for their cross-chain interoperability protocol, CCIP, which actually allows, cross-chain token transfers, messaging, but it has a committing DON that first executes the transaction. It then has an executing DON on a destination chain that will process it. But before that can even go through, there is a risk management network, a third completely different Oracle network built on a completely different stack that blesses and or curses transactions based on it finding if there is malicious intent involved. So I feel like the more players and the more nodes and validators that are brought in will allow us to sort of remove that ratio for error and manipulation.
Adrian, how do you think, like, average people can interact with prediction markets? I mean, should they be trying to provide liquidity? Should they be trying to bet? Do they just do it for entertainment? Should it be something serious financially, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think in terms of playing the prediction market game, there's a lot of extensions into social media or even fun exercises around what is actually true, where you can get into sort of like very philosophical rabbit holes. For example, the question that you asked, like, are you wearing a hoodie right now? And if we asked ChatGPT that, and ChatGPT had access to photos of this room right now, it would come up with something. And then if everyone here also voted on that, and then we had an incentive mechanism where someone could actually raise their hand and say, yes, that is true, I'm willing to put money down on it, and anyone can dispute it. Eventually we'll get to something that we kind of agree is true as a consensus, but who knows, right? It depends on our eyes and the data. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think whether you're rich or you're poor or you're dumb or you're smart, or whether you just want to turn on an AI, the same way Olas does, prediction markets are fun. So, yeah.
And like between DeFi and prediction markets, obviously you can start doing some crazy stuff. I mean, my friend Dave from Dave White at Paradigm was starting to come up with these multiverse situations, and you can have a token that's only valuable in this, let's say like this is the Trump presidency token, and this is the Kamala presidency token, and you can start doing DeFi stuff. You can get like really creative. I don't know if that's going to be part of the end game because it feels, a bit complex. But how do you think DeFi will start to interact with the building blocks of prediction markets? Can we use collateral and borrow against it? Like, is that going to be too complex, or who's bullish on that category, I guess?
I think the more that we get prediction markets as something that you can interact with on many levels. So rather than just the major things that you would bet on, but actually much smaller, less consequential decisions, I think just more volume will go through these prediction markets. And I think what you end up getting at that point is the ability to create automated betting strategies, which start to look like staking strategies. Basically, if you want to provide liquidity to markets, you can start to devise strategies that go across different markets and will bet portions of your kind of tokens on different markets in a way that you've predetermined, because essentially what you're doing is exporting your belief system across a series of markets. In doing that, you can have entire like yield generating strategies. So you could have lower risk, lower reward staking vaults, which do bets across a different kind of set of markets, or you could have higher risk, higher reward ones which do larger bets on kind of more uncertain markets. But I think once we have a large number of markets in the kind of info finance concept, you open up this entire world of DeFi and yield generation from automated betting strategies, essentially.
Okay, if we're talking about hypotheticals here, my vision is predicated on this notion that what we're witnessing right now is the rise of a new merchant and consumer class that's going to manifest as trillions of AIs. So taking that future-looking view, I think prediction markets could play a huge role in the application of like decentralized insurance, where there's bets against what each of these subset of agents are going to do. And part of that pool goes to actually ensuring the productive output of those agents. To your point, Jordi, I'm not sold that like existing fiat denominated currencies, whether it's or like existing denominations of currencies are going to be supporting these units of transaction. Could just be, a bunch of agents come together and start to pool their own resources and create this hypothetical token you talked about. So I think, like this is a hypothetical outcome that could happen for sure.
All right, let's wrap up with a couple quick fire questions. One, again, kind of looking into the past and into the future, there was a lot of hype around agents even last year. I would say, that was going to be one of the keywords of the year of 2025. In my opinion, it's turned out we're still a little bit early because we haven't had, not everyone in this room is using agents to do stuff for them quite yet. I guess from a number of 1 to 10, on this progress, are you guys feeling like we're getting above our skis and we're promising things that are not there, or are AI agents actually gonna, what's the hype? Is it hype or, let's say 10 is like it's all substance, like it's tomorrow they're about to announce the big breakthrough, and 0 is like, we're just hype and there's no agents coming. 0 to 10.
0 to 10?
0 is like all hype.
I mean, okay, I've been wandering in the AI agent wilderness for 10 years, so fucking 10. We're having this conversation and everybody in this audience knows what an agent is. Last year, they would have been like, what's an agent? Explain an agent to me. So I do think it has been the year of the agent, just because it's actually entered the lexicon. From an application point of view, we're starting to see inroads being made, especially contextually in a B2B landscape. As for everybody having their own proxy, I mean, that's closer to 0.
Okay, but the fact that Don has all of you guys as friends instead of being alone in his room, he's very excited about it, so that's good.
I think I struggle with the agents thing. I think realistically, in my view, AI and machine learning has 3 main use cases that it presents to the world. One is autonomy, which is kind of agents. Another is augmentation, which is just making stuff that you do with technology better, faster, more effective. It doesn't need to be anthropomorphized, doesn't need to be an agent. It can just be better tech. And the third is ambient AI, which is just stuff happening on sensors around the world that you don't even really know about, but it makes your life slightly better. And I put agents only in the first category, and I think they will happen. I don't necessarily think they're going to be as big as everybody likes to think, because that anthropomorphization gets everyone excited. The final thing I would say is I think crypto has followed the exact same cycle it always follows, which is seeing something that is possible in the future, seeing some seeds of it being possible right now, and just assuming it will happen immediately. And obviously it didn't really happen immediately, but if you trace that back into the past, obviously you get that chasm where the tech didn't fulfill its promise yet, and then eventually you get that climb back out again. So I do think we'll see that, but I'm more excited about all of the use cases of AI as a technology rather than just that anthropomorphized agent piece.
What's the number?
3 or 4.
Okay, we go from a 10 down to a 3. You're saying people get really excited about these Ottoman Turk chess playing things and they get a bit too excited. Okay, Michael?
Well, I'm going to be on the top end of the spectrum, a 9 or a 10, because think about how much nowadays, especially within the intersection of blockchain and AI technology, just looking through some sort of protocols documentation, you're already interacting with an agent who's summarizing for you your question in a search bar, and it really
when I go to hotels.com and it gives me the agent, I'm really just trying to get to the human. I'm like, yeah, just, I want to, just give me the human. I still want the human.
I totally agree with you. I mean, there always is going to be a human experience within the digital world. And that's when we could go down the rabbit hole in terms of philosophical conversations about how do you actually map human emotion and the human experience in a smart contract. So there's always going to be anomalies and outliers that are just completely unpredictable. But as we are developing more cost-effective ways of allowing this agentic framework and workloads to be stored in a verifiable manner, that's just going to open up the floodgates for farther advancement.
What's the number?
I'm going to do a 9.5.
Oh man, a lot of optimism. Okay, Sydney, where are we at? Is this the year of the agents or what, or not quite yet?
Yeah, so that vocabulary word, agents, I think it provides a very tangible vision of what we're working on. Because if you remember back then when we worked in blockchain, now we work in crypto. Because then there's a little JPEG of a coin and you're like, oh, I can see that coin. So when you say agent, I mean, remember those who, I used to work in robotic process automation, RPA, and this was like one of the precursors to workflow automation, AI automation. And RPA wasn't very tangible, so you coined the term agents to have something that is tangible. And I think something that you said earlier, Michael, was that how do you map this type of like human nuance and human experience on chain, if you will? I think that's a huge reminder that in traditional Silicon Valley type pursuit of AI development, it is always towards the question of AGI, or how do we get closer to emulating humanity. And I think because we are in crypto, we are in blockchain, we like to quantify all of our successes, and you're able to see number go up, my company good. Number go down, there's nothing to be like quantified. So those are kind of just my high level thoughts. And
your number is?
What was that?
What's the number out of 10?
8.
8, okay. We're getting near out of time, but thankfully Victor is a man of few and precise words.
No, it's very quick. If I ask myself over the last 2 years, which one had the biggest impact on my life, would it be blockchain or agents? It's agents.
Okay.
Therefore, it's a 10 for me.
Wow, okay.
I would say if we were last year, it'd probably be hype because we were talking about agent tokens rather than agents doing meaningful economic activity. But if you look at what's happening in the last couple of months, I think Gensyn's doing, like, their project's doing a great job. Giza did 3% of total volume on base last year. So we're finally seeing agents doing real economic activity and the payment rails being laid by mainstream companies. So I would say probably 7.
All right. We're out of time, everybody. I love doing these every 3 to 6 months, learning from you guys. Thanks so much, and thanks everybody here.
Thanks.